College football week 6 is upon us. I am Kelly Stewart at Kelly in Vegas here on the Wager Talk YouTube channel. This is Bet On It. We've got some barking dogs today, a little TNA, and of course, we're going to round out the show with our best bets. Let's bring in Marco D'Angelo at Marco in Vegas, Joe Raineri at Joe Raineri, maybe still shadow banned, maybe not. We're going to find out. Go in that search bar on X and see if you guys can find him, because I sure as hell can never do so. Marco, you give out the primetime games this week, and you didn't even ask my opinion, because we knew there was only 2 games we were talking about in this segment. Starting off with the Red River Shootout rivalry, whatever we call it these days. Oklahoma is a 6.5-point dog in Arlington to the Texas Longhorns, total 60.5.
Yeah, Kelly, you look at this one. Both teams enter this one 5-0 straight up on the season, but only one of them can claim to be 5-0 against the spread, and that is Oklahoma. But everybody's going to say they've played a soft schedule, and I can't argue that fact, but you can only play who's in front of you. Now, these two teams did play last season, as they play every year with this rivalry game, and you know what? Oklahoma got the snot knocked out of them. They got beat 49-0. So let's go ahead and throw it out there. We're going to have that word revenge. Everybody likes to toss it around, but this is one of those spots where I think it does apply. Why? Well, we always say we like to have the revenge factor. If it's a team that ended somebody's season, that's an automatic. But every revenge situation isn't a place to back the revenging team. But when it is a rivalry game like this, if you got your asses beat 49-0, yeah, you circled that game, and you're going to remember it for next year. And if you go back to that game last year, Oklahoma was in a horrible spot. 1, they didn't have their starting quarterback. And 2, if you remember, it was year 1 of the new head coach. Remember, Lincoln Riley very unexpectedly bolted from Oklahoma to USC late November the year before. So they were up against it in that one. Now you've got a healthy team. You got a team that's clicking. You've got the second year under this head coach in the offensive systems. I like Oklahoma. I'll go ahead and use the R word to get their revenge. I think this is going to be a good old-fashioned rivalry, meaning throw out the stats. It comes down to the end of the game. Team with the ball last could win it. I've got Oklahoma being that team, 30-27.
I have Oklahoma on my parlay long list. I don't know, Marco. I took this team last year in the spot, and they got throttled. And then I also gave out on BetQL on Saturday morning. They said, hey, who's your team this year? It looks really good. I said the Texas Longhorns. Maybe there was a little reverse jinx in there. Maybe, just maybe. Joe Raineri, what say you?
If I remember correctly, Gabriel did not play in that game last year because I think he was hurt, and then everything just kind of snowballed from there, and it got out of control. And as somebody that has been to this game a number of times at the old Cotton Bowl there at the Texas State Fair, I can assure you crazy is crazy, and crazy is going to happen in this game. It happens. Whether it's a blowout or a close game, there's always just absolute craziness that shows up in here. But I do happen to think, like Marco, I certainly lean OU. I think the 6.5 is too many points here in this kind of rivalry game. But I also think the total's a little high at 60.5, and I'll tell you why. Texas is not a great running football team. OU is a very good running defense this year. Venables really has done a nice job of fixing a lot of the wrongs, bringing in the right kind of guys for this defense for OU. And while this is going to be the best offense they have faced here so far, I'm not sold on Quinn Ewers. I'm just not sold that he's going to be some sort of exceptional player this season for them. I don't buy it. I also buy the OU defense being able to get a ton of pressure on him. So if I got a Texas team that is not great running the ball, is going to have pressure on their quarterback every which way they turn, I think 30 wins this game. And I think the first team to 30, that's it. So there's no way I think this is going to be some wild, crazy shootout, simply because I'm not there on Gabriel in this offense either. I mean, you don't have to look any further to what they did in that Cincinnati game where points were hard to come by. And this defense of Texas, for the first time, I can actually say, is pretty damn good. And it's certainly college football playoff worthy thus far. I thought they did a great job against beating Kansas in that offense last week. I think they're going to hold their own against Gabriel and the OU offense. So when I look at this game, I think 60.5 is a tad too much. I think 28 or 30 is going to win it, and we're going to land in the 50s, not in the 60s.
Ooh, I figured you'd save that for the Are You High segment, but we're going to go to a lower scoring game here in Georgia. 14.5-point favorites to another team who is 5-0, the Kentucky Wildcats. On the screen, it says total 49, but on the Wager Talk odds screen, it says 48 here on this Wednesday afternoon. Joe Raineri, I'm going to kick it back to you. I wanted to like Kentucky here really, really bad. I like this team. I wanted to lay it with them last week. I got a little gun shy, and of course, they just rolled the Florida Gators.
Oh, yeah, great stuff, Gares. I still think Davis is running for yards here. Give me a damn break. Listen, do you want to get in front of what is going on here between these two teams? And what's going on is we're looking about Georgia having beaten Kentucky 13 straight times, 24 of the last 26. But here's the numbers that I thought was impressive. Kentucky has scored now in this matchup 6, 13, 3, none, 17, and 13 here in just the last 6 or 7 matchups against this defense here of Georgia. And while it's certainly not the Georgia caliber defenses that they've had over the last couple of national championship runs here, the reality is everything that Kentucky does right, or does well, I should say, certainly running the ball, it goes right into the teeth of what this defense does do well. I don't see them being able to throw the ball. They're going to have to rely on the running game. They're going to have to keep this thing low scoring. Why? It's going to be the only shot they have of actually winning it, because this is not the Georgia offense of the last couple of seasons. So they too are working some things. I love that lad McConkey was back. Nobody kind of talked about it last week, but snuck him into that game, and all of a sudden things worked and clicked a little bit for that Georgia offense. But Kentucky's played nobody. Kentucky has had a terrible time trying to score points in this matchup, and so is Georgia. Started off pretty slowly in a number of games this year. So instead of the full game, because this could get out of control, I went at the first half here, and I'm going to say this is going to be a low-scoring game in the first half. Georgia's going to have the lead at the half, but I think we're going to be under the 24.5 points in the first half of this game. I do expect the fireworks offensively, especially for Georgia, to come with the adjustments in the second half. So I'm looking at the first half under in this one.
All right, Marco, I'd ask your opinion, but I know we got to save that for the best bet segment. I'm already unable to speak, and we're only into the first 10 minutes of the show. So we're just going to go ahead and pivot, kick you guys off, bring in my guy, Ralph Michaels, because these glasses only mean one thing. It's time for some TNA with my guy, Ralph. Oh, Ralph, wouldn't be TNA, though, if we didn't have a little streaking every once in a while. Jeff Michaels put together a nice little chart I wanted to bring up to start this segment. Ralph, talk to me about some of these streakers.
Yeah, Jeff did it this week. He'll do it every week. He'll add the NFL next week as well. It's simply this, Cal. Who is hot, who is cold when you're betting them? It shows the top teams that have ATS wins. For example, Oklahoma, Oregon, Penn State, and UNLV with 5 straight covers. Vanderbilt with 6 straight ATS losses. And in fact, Cal, if you look at the overs, Vanderbilt with 6 straight overs. How about one of those? If you bet $100 parlay, fading Vanderbilt and on the over since week 0 when they played, you'd be up about $35,000. It's that simple.
That's just absolutely absurd, but you do love to see who's hot and who's not. But Ralph, I sent you a couple of things that I wanted to talk about this week, and I wanted to remind everybody first, they can always go to your homepage on wagertalk.buzz/RM, so you can get all of this information. But you've got a nerd chart for me and a couple trends and angles.
Well, Cal, we have 2 teams this week that are sizable home dogs and are undefeated. So I wanted to go through and take a look at what undefeated home dogs are game by game. Obviously, week 1, game number 1, we have a lot of home dogs, and they've hit 67%. But look at the week-by-week records. There's only one negative record, and that's week 11. It's happened one time. So if you're thinking about playing Louisville and Missouri, they've been in very, very positive situations. And sometimes you think, are those teams good enough? They're a home dog for a reason. But what this chart tells you, you've done just fine backing them all the way back since 2018.
That's funny, Ralph, because I have a couple nerd charts of my own that both have Missouri and Louisville on them for this week. I'm glad you have some data to back that up for me. All right, so week 6, kind of getting into the nuts and bolts of the college football season. Everybody's in conference play. What interesting facts, trends, angles, etc. did you find for us?
Well, for the viewers that don't know, Kelly only lets me on the show if I have some positive Kansas State TNA. So I found one for you this week, Kelly. And going back since 2018, when both teams are off a bye, one team is off a win, the opponent is off a loss, and the team, like Kansas State, off a win as a favorite, it's gone 67 and 42. That is 61.5%. So both teams off a bye. When the favorite is off a win and the other opponent is off a loss, like Kansas State is this week, a positive situation. System number 2. This goes back since 2015. We are playing on a home team where their opponent is off a loss as a home favorite, and the line is greater than 3. So that means they're 3.5, 4, 4.5. I made one mistake. I said we're actually playing against a home dog over 3 with an opponent off a home loss. That team is Iowa State. 66 ATS covers, 95 ATS losses. That is only a 41% situation Iowa State is. And in that same system, 62.2% of those games have gone under the total. So System 2 says to fade Iowa State and look at the under between Iowa State and TCU. How about teams that have won back-to-back games as a dog? It's simple. That's the only thing I'm looking at. You won 2 games ago as an underdog. You won last game as an underdog. We're going back since 2016. Those teams have been a negative, and that shouldn't be a shock to you. You pulled the upset back-to-back weeks. Perhaps the Vegas line has made adjustments. Those teams have covered 44.9%. Those fade teams this week, South Florida, Arkansas State, and West Virginia. And one subset on that, Kelly, if you won back-to-back games as a dog and now you're a dog again, like Arkansas State is, those teams have only gone 30 and 49, 38% against the spread. And the final one, well, guess what? If we're looking at how teams did off back-to-back wins as a dog, let's turn it around and see what happens if you're off back-to-back losses as a favorite. It was pretty 50-50, but if you're off a back-to-back loss as a favorite and now you're a dog of 3 or more, like Massachusetts is, that has been a fade situation, going 28 and 41, 40.6% against the spread. So back-to-back wins as a dog is a fade situation. Back-to-back losses as a favorite, if you are a dog of 3 or more, also a fade situation. Remember that PDF will be available after 12 noon Eastern each and every Thursday.
You love to see it. The man with the pin, talking about all those barking dogs. So we're going to let him go. Bring back in Marco and Joe, because I hear them coming. It's like my favorite sound in the world. And I got to hit one of these parlays or I'm going to lose all credibility. Marco D'Angelo and I have a similar barking dog this week. And let me tell you, he was not very nice to me during our commercial break. So Marco, take it away. I'll let you go first and explain why we like the Missouri Tigers.
All right, Kelly. I do like it I gave you a little bit of shit beforehand, but I just don't want to end up being on a popular dog. That's, fear that we always have. But this one, it's got everything I look at. And let's start with it. We're going to go with the first thing as far as LSU. This is a category we like to say, hey, they're going to lose the same game twice. They had a gut-wrenching loss last week. That Mississippi game last week, up and down the field, both teams. They had a 9-point lead in the fourth quarter and ended up blowing it. Final touchdown, giving up the final 2 touchdowns in the final 5 minutes, the last one coming with 43 seconds left in the game. So definitely they could come up flat off of that loss. I also got to throw in there, you got to be able to classify that one as the dream crusher, because that was loss number 2. They had their first loss of the season in week 1. Now, we know that a one-loss SEC team can make it to the playoffs, especially if that one loss came against an undefeated team, Florida State, at the time. Now, 2 losses, playoff talks are over for LSU. So we're worried about them coming into this one flat. I'm looking at the Missouri side of this, and I love this team, what they're doing, and they should be able to move the football against LSU. Since Brian Kelly's taken over, when you talked about LSU teams in the past, we always thought about hard-nosed defense and could they ever find, enough offense to score points and win games. Well, now it's the other way around. They can't stop anybody, and they score points. Do you really want to be laying points with a team that might be deflated? You got a bad situational spot for LSU. You've got Missouri with the better defense getting points. That's all I need. Give me Missouri 34-30. That's my barking dog.
See, Marco, wasn't so bad after all, right? We just share a lot of the same sentiments. That's what happens when you're one of my mentors who taught me how to find some of those barking dogs. Joe, I like your barking dog as well, but you're going to have to do a lot of convincing to tell me that this team is going to win outright.
Well, from Mizzou to Wazoo, I guess. Let's try saying that 3 times fast. Because I am going to Washington State, taking on UCLA this week here, getting the hook right now. 3.5 is what we are seeing, and I don't know why. We continue to have opportunities to be able to back Washington State. We've cashed them in a number of spots in the dog roll. I'd take you back to Wisconsin, for instance, a few weeks back. Also, let's not forget Oregon State a couple of weeks ago. So I don't know why it is the market continues to look for spots to think that this Washington State team is not for real. They are for real. And defensively, they are certainly good enough, but I think this ultimately comes down to which quarterback do I trust in a game that is lined a field goal here or just over a field goal? Am I going to go with the freshman who looks like he's going to have Dante Moore, who they finally settled on there with Chip Kelly in UCLA, who has got a cannon of an arm, very athletic. But the problem is, like with most freshmen, he has been sacked 1,000,000 times for almost 100 yards of loss. He doesn't know how to get rid of the ball yet. He is nowhere near the level that Cam Ward is. And what really did it for me was that we're looking at a Washington State program in school now that over the last 3 years, 14-4-1 against the number against Pac-12 opponents. This is a team that has already proven they can go on the road against bully-style teams like Wisconsin and not get pushed around and yet do the bullying. We just saw it against Oregon State. Forget the final score. That was about as one-sided as you got. So I don't see why a freshman quarterback, I should trust him more than Cam Ward, who's proven it now his entire collegiate career, that he is a guy in a big game who's ready to take that next step. I'll take the hook. I'll take the 3.5, and I will sprinkle it on the money line because Washington State is a very much a live dog to win this thing outright against Chip Kelly's rebuilding UCLA Bruins.
Once again, Marco proves he has a bigger one than Joe. And I also got Joe's best bet confused with his barking dog, which is why that probably didn't work out very well. Blame FEMA and their stupid emergency text right in the middle of the show. Yeah, keep laughing, Joe Public, because we agree on this next one too. And in the way my track record has been this year, that is not good news for you.
Do I have time to make a quick change? All right, no, I can't, because listen, I get it. Everyone thinks Purdue is trash and everybody loves Iowa. Well, the only people who love Iowa are the people who haven't watched Iowa, especially offensively. And I happen to be with friends of ours, CT Betts and company, this past week when Cade McNamara got his leg crushed and was taken out of that game. And then they brought in this dude, Deacon Hill, rather. Well, he looked just like Deacon Jones because the dude is about 6'3", 6'4", about 280, and he's a quarterback. The freshman that is now under center for Iowa is going to make it extremely difficult for Iowa to do anything offensively. Kudos for taking on a totally dysfunctional Michigan State team and pulling out the win somehow. But that's not what we're getting with Purdue. Purdue, I have watched this team now over the last couple of weeks. They are getting better and better. They did an amazing job against Illinois. They're starting to click. And we're also seeing a series and a history between these two teams in which the underdog has done pretty good against the number. I was this close to making Purdue a possible dog situation here with an outright win, but I'll gladly take however many points you want to give me, because unless the defense, and this is going to get old for this defense, unless Iowa's defense is going to put up 2 touchdowns, and I don't see that happening, points are going to be extremely hard to come by for Iowa. Even against Purdue's defense, this kid is not a great quarterback by any stretch, and just a week in between games isn't going to fix that. Iowa struggles to score. Purdue, probably with a late field goal, wins this thing outright.
Yeah, Joe, I have to agree with you. I watched that Iowa-Michigan State game last week, and I'd say Iowa got pretty lucky to get that late cover. Michigan State had them on the ropes for a better part of 3.5 quarters. Marco, we're going to wrap this segment up, put a nice piece of tape on it like you would at a butcher shop, but instead, it's a sandwich.
It is a sandwich, Kelly, and this one I think is a tasty one here. It's not that hard to swallow. If you look at this matchup, Oregon State and California, the knee-jerk reaction is going to be you're going to want to grab Oregon State. Why not? They've won 4 out of 5. Their only loss was a 3-point loss to the team that Joe just talked about earlier with Washington State and how well they're playing this year. So it's kind of hard not to like Oregon State. But if we dig deeper, let's look at what they did. Last week, big game for them. They played on a Friday night. You got the TV cameras there, home game. You got Utah coming to play. Utah has been the team that's dominated the Pac-12 the last 2 seasons. So that was a huge game. They took it to them. They beat them 21-7, shut them down. But we also know 2 things. Utah still without their starting quarterback, who hasn't played yet this year, Cam Rising, and Utah was coming off a big game of their own. The week before, they played UCLA. So that was kind of a flat spot for Utah last week, and Oregon State took advantage of it. Now the roles are reversed. You've got Oregon State coming off that big win last week, and look at who they play next week. Yeah, they got UCLA on the schedule. I'm sorry, whether UCLA's having an up or a down season, anytime you have, one of the 2 letters out of the Pac-12, USC or UCLA, teams are going to get up for them, and I'm looking for Oregon State to get caught looking ahead. Speaking about getting caught looking ahead, what happened almost last week to Arizona, in Arizona State, or they were at home, I should say. Cal looked past Arizona State. They were coming off that Washington game the week before and looking ahead to this one. In my opinion, I like taking a team that had a close scare but found a way to win it. They won the game by 3, laying 13 points. I'll take them this week as a dog. This one goes right down to the wire. Give me California plus the 9.5. Maybe a small sprinkle, but I see this as a 3-point game. Either way, I'm taking the points for my sandwich game of the week.
I like it, Marco. I'm sorry. Cal was the steal of Ralph Michaels' college football draft for Chris Thurston and I. And I'm going to continue to back this team. Now I just have to figure out if they can get the outright win on Saturday. we're going to head over, kick these two out of the way, and see what kind of goals Ace, Gianni the Greek, VR, my guy, has for us this week in college football. VR is back. Ace, Gianni the Greek, at Greek_Gambler on Twitter, and he is bringing all of the college football gold. VR, I got my pin ready, and let's have it.
Yeah, I wasn't here last week, and you guys give me so much support. I always go through, check the comments. I appreciate it all. Make sure you go down, smash that like button for us. And I got a ton of quantity and quality for you today, so I'm not going to waste any time. I'm going to dive right in. Real quickly, let's lay the ground rules. We don't parlay ever, so it doesn't matter. We don't tease college football because it's negative EV, regardless of the situation. So those are the ground rules. Only bet good numbers. And of course, now that we're up to about that week 6 in college football, we know what home field advantage is worth. It's worth more than it is in the NFL. In conference, because they're used to seeing each other, playing each other, it's worth about 2.5 points, definitely less than 3. But when you're talking out-of-conference teams, ones that aren't used to each other's fields, haven't played each other, that's worth about 3.5 points, sometimes even up to 4. That's a whole almost 2 points more than the NFL. Keep that in mind in college football. Now let's dive right in. First off, tonight, not sure if it's even going to be out before the game start, but I can share it. Jacksonville State plus 3.5. That's why it's sitting at that key number of 3. And also, Florida International, New Mexico State, they're 48.5, under 51. There you go. There's 2 betting syndicates that see value, that believe this number is tight. One likes the over 48.5. The other likes the under at 51. Let's move on to Thursday primetime action. Liberty minus 19.5. Also, over 45.5 in Sam Houston and Liberty, but under 24 in the first half. That's correct. Under 24 in the first half actually hit by multiple groups, and the over 45 is extremely sharp as well. I see it all the time in baseball. Obviously, you can't give that stuff out to subscribers because they're going to think you're nuts, sending out a game total over and a first half under. But I can promise you, there are tons of there ain't that many betting syndicates, but the ones that are around that are winning long time, they definitely make bets like that because it's 2 completely different wagers. So you got to keep that in mind. And finally, in that same Thursday night, Western Kentucky minus the 6, got up to 6.5, came back, so there may be some resistance there. I haven't seen it. Move down to Friday, more prime time action. Kelly's going to like this one. It's Kansas State at minus 10, Kansas State 10.5, and minus 11, all the way to 11.5. That's why you're seeing it at 12 at Pinnacle. So a lot of love on Kansas State. And then the home team, Nebraska. I'm surprised this one's at that key number, isn't at that key number of 3, because they took the 3.5. So I'm not sure if there's resistance or there's public Illinois money coming in, because taking a key number like 3.5 and seeing it's still available makes me have some caution. Move on to Saturday. Grab your seats. I got a lot to share. Start off with Central Florida plus 3.5 against Kansas. Drop down to 325, excuse me. Syracuse, we're taking Syracuse plus the 9.5, Syracuse plus the 9, Syracuse plus the 8.5, and under 60. Move down to Kentucky, Georgia. Georgia minus 14.5, Kentucky plus 14.5. That's correct. Opposite winning bettors on the exact same number. So take it as you will, but I will tell you so far this season, the Kentucky side has been doing better. That group's up a lot more. And in that same game, under 48.5, under 48, that one got blasted. In fact, I was asked to bet it off screen. If that tells you anything, there were 3 totals I was asked to bet off screen, and I'm going to share those with you as we go through. Drop down to the next game, Boston College against Army, Boston College plus 3.5, Boston College plus 3, Boston College on the money line. Right after that, the very next game, Notre Dame minus the 6.5, laying juice to not have to lay that 7. You don't have to anymore. It's sitting at 6 with some juice. It was 6.5 with some juice when they got down. So it shows you there's some home dog action as well on the Louisville side. Move down to 337, 338, Miami of Florida minus the 21. and it's still sitting there. If you like that side, you know you're with the sharp bettors. And then right after that, Virginia Tech at plus 26, Virginia Tech plus 25.5 and 25 as well. And then game 331, Tulsa plus the 3.5. Another game where I'm surprised the 3.5 is still available. But that one did get some sharp action, no money line action there. Navy against North Texas. Navy -6, North Texas +7. Shows you that 7 is a key number. I don't have a position on either side or an opinion, to be honest with you. A little further down, Northern Illinois and Akron. Akron plus the 5. Dog on the Akron side. And then move down. Here comes some totals. 339, 350. That's Central Michigan. And Buffalo under 53.5. The game right under it. Ball State Central Michigan under 42.5. And here comes one of those I was asked to bet off screen. Kent, Ohio under 46.5. That's Kent, Ohio under 36.5. And as you can see on screen, it's sitting at 45.5 right now. When they ask for me to bet it off screen, that simply means we need more time to get down. So any of those outs that you have that are skins of books that are on screen, don't fire through them because the lines are moved, and obviously they won't be able to get down as much as they want. And that's one of those totals. One more coming up that they wanted to get a lot of money down on. Next, LSU, Missouri, taking the points with Mizzou at home at +6.5 and Mizzou at +6. That's why you're seeing that line. That actually got hit earlier this morning. And also in that same game, over 63.5. And finally, Oklahoma, Texas. Oklahoma, Texas. Let me just confirm this. Give me 1 second because it's over. See, I accidentally put an arrow under, but I remembered that one was over 59.5, Oklahoma, Texas. Over 59.5, over 60, Oklahoma, Texas. That was the third total that I was asked to bet off screen. Dropped down to Arkansas State at Troy, under 53. Don't forget, UL Monroe, +12. 2 more totals for you. UConn Rice, under 49. Old Dominion Southern Miss, over 57.5. And last but not least, the last game on the board, Louisiana, -1 over Texas State. I know that's a lot. And to be honest with you, it'll probably be double this by the time Saturday night is all settled and done. And that's why I wait till Sunday morning to see what the results are. That's just how these betting syndicates fire. They look for the edge, wherever it is. They get their money down. They manage risk correctly. And when the dust settles, they place good bets and good things happen. You're profitable. So don't take bad numbers. Take good numbers. You'll do just fine.
I don't know about you guys, but my finger hurts really bad from writing that fast. VR, you are the best. Thank you for hanging out with us on Bet On It each and every week. Good luck to all of you guys at Tail. Like VR says, he's sharing sharp information with you because you've asked for it. Remember to make good bets and do not bet bad numbers. Speaking of bets, you know what time it is. It's time for those best bets. All right, it's time for best bets. Before we get to those, we have a football blowout Wager Talk special on deck. 49 straight days with football from today until November 21st. You get all 7 weeks of college football and NFL for $39 per week. Sooner you buy, the more you'll save. $273 for the next 7 weeks was originally $409. Let's get into that best bet. Look, this one opened 5. I bet 3.5 on Monday. Now it's +2. So we're just going to scrap all of that and take the money line here with UCF, whether it's Daniel or Bean, Plumlee or McLean. I'm not sure it matters. I think Texas just gave Kansas a real reality check. Remember how they thought that they were going to go waltz into Austin and get the outright win, and Texas absolutely throttled them. I know on the flip side, UCF blew a 3-score lead to Baylor. Thank God. But how do they bounce back? Well, I think against this Jayhawks defense very well. Johnny Richardson should be able to have an absolute heyday against them. I also give the nod to Gus Malzahn here with the coaching edge. I look for the Knights to leave Lawrence with a W. Marco D'Angelo, how has Wager Talk been for you over the last few weeks?
Well, Kelly, if you've been following the best bets here on Bet On It, you know we have been absolutely crushing our best bets. Another sweep last week, 2 easy winners. We had the over in the Colorado USC game on Saturday, and then we had Buffalo on Sunday. What's been even better has been my rare 5% plays for my premium clients. We've only had 2 of them this season, back-to-back Saturdays, and they both were blowouts. Last Saturday, we had an underdog, Troy, win outright by 21 points. That's the way you like them. So I got to say, this deal we're running right now, that is one heck of an offer. Jump on board, grab a 7-week package, college and pro football for $39 a week. Let's get to today's best bet. I teased it earlier. Yes, it is in the Kentucky-Georgia game. That was one of the TV games, but I like this one a lot, and I'm going with Georgia. I know everybody's asking the question, what's wrong with Georgia? Yeah, they're 5-0 straight up, but we don't care about that. We bet games, and people are saying they're 0-4-1 against the spread. So why do I like Georgia? Well, you know what? When you're the defending national champs back-to-back years, you know what? You're going to be laying a lot of wood in every game because the public is going to bet Georgia. The books know that, and they pump the lines. But now we've got a spot here where I like Georgia. I think this number comes in short here because of all the love for Kentucky. They're undefeated. But you know what? Let's pump the brakes. Who is Kentucky beaten? Oh, you can say they just beat Florida last week. Yeah, that's now a 2-loss Florida team that got shut down the opening week against Utah's defense and, let them score points with a backup quarterback. No, I'm not buying it. I think Georgia comes to play. They had a scare last week once again, and I tell you, I love taking teams that had a scare, good teams, because they come focused and ready to play the next week. And beating Auburn by just 7 last week was the wake-up call. This defense will be the toughest defense Kentucky has faced. Let's see what they do when they can't run the football. I'll go Georgia. I'll lay the points here. I'm looking for a blowout, 38-17. I just don't think Kentucky, excuse the pun, Lexington has the horses to hang with Georgia.
Oh, Marco, you're so corny. Oh, God. I would have to agree with Marco here. I looked at Kentucky early, and I agree. They're probably not fast enough to be able to run with the Georgia Bulldogs. Joe Raineri, since I screwed up your dog earlier, let's talk about that best bet and tell me why you think Rutgers has a shot to win this game outright.
Anybody that's been watching Wisconsin, the Tanner Mordecai experience looks a lot like Graham Mertz's experience. This is a big step up from the American Athletic Conference to the Big Ten, isn't it? There is nothing in prep. This was supposed to be a changing of the guard, right? Luke Fickell comes in. No more just running the ball. They're going to be air raiding it all over the place. They bring in the OC from North Carolina. Some of it is supposed to be just a ton of points, but no, his numbers are not great. And why are they not great? Because this ain't SMU, and you're not playing Houston. You're playing big boy football. And Rutgers and Gianni this year, we're talking about now a top 30 defense in not only total scoring, but against the run, which is the one thing with Braylon Allen that Wisconsin has been able to do with any sort of consistency. The problem is this ain't Purdue. This is going to be a Rutgers team who a couple of years ago got blown out 51-3 or 51-7. It was disgusting, but it was a 7-3 game at the break. And I totally anticipate that, yes, this is a game that Wisconsin can win, should win, will probably win. But winning by 2 touchdowns this is not a Wisconsin team who is now 7-12 against the number here in their last 19. This is not the Wisconsin team of old. They're still trying to figure some things out. And maybe the biggest problem with Wisconsin is their defense. They gave up almost 200 yards on the ground to Purdue. So Rutgers is going to be able to move the ball while the quarterback is not going to be all that impressive. He's not going to be chucking it around the yard here. But you know what he does? He doesn't throw any INTs either, which is great. Don't turn the ball over. Play tough-nosed football. Rutgers is going to make this a scrap. and Rutgers is going to make this far too close for Wisconsin's liking. The bottom line is Wisconsin will likely win, but Rutgers is going to make them earn every penny of it. I only got them by a touchdown. I'll gladly take the other touchdown.
Yeah, Rutgers did make my long list. I'm just afraid they cannot squeak out the win. I was betting against Rutgers a lot early on, and boy, was I wrong on that team. Let's hope we're not wrong on those best bets. Let's get that recap graphic up so we can say goodbye to you guys and on to the NFL show. As always, we adore every single one of you, even the haters in the comment section and those of you who cheat and go all the way to the end. Either way, hope you guys enjoyed tonight's show as much as we always do. Doing it from Joe, Marco, Ralph, VR, and myself. Good luck. Till next week. Let's bet on it.